Hello again, everybody. We're going to move our program along. First, we're going to have some remarks and recognition. I'm going to start it off, and then you'll see other people up here, and we'll get to our presentation. So enjoy your dessert, have a second cup of coffee. And I'm just wondering, are you hearing okay out there? Hearing well? So I'd like to recognize our board of directors. We have, without a doubt, the best nonprofit board on the North Shore, and maybe even further than that. I truly appreciate them. They are hardworking. They work together. Any ask is simply done. Keeping me out of it to get things done is always a good thing. And they do great, and I want to say a sincere appreciation to our board of directors and a little bit of a applause for them, please. Thank you. And even more importantly, if that could be true, is the attendees tonight and your membership and your attendance at other activities that we do. You make us what we are, and I think we're pretty good. But it all stems with the membership, the support, the donations that are remarkable, the volunteerism that is growing and is remarkable. So I'd like you to give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. We'd be remiss if we didn't thank Ian McDermott and Kevin. They are WCAT, and if you come from Wakefield and you know about them at all, you know how hardworking that station is, how hardworking these two individuals are, and the service that they provide. We rely on it in many, many ways, and they're here tonight recording our meeting. So round of applause, please, for Ian and Kevin. Ian, recognize the applause. There you go. Bear Hill is our home for this and has been for quite a long time, and it's a lovely place, as you can see. It looks even better when the sun or the sunset is shining, but we're indoors. It's quite comfortable. They do a great job. Jessica, I don't see her, but she's here working the work. So I'd like a round of applause and a thank you to Bear Hill for hosting us. And finally, for our participants tonight, we'll have a word from Matt D'Amico, not yet Matt, and Copley and Wolf Landscape, and you'll see their presentation about the basin. And you may ask them, why the basin? But for a name. I'm not sure. I don't have an answer, but you could ask them. Or ask Matt, I think, is probably the best way to go. So I'm going to ask, speaking of ask, Bill Boudry to come up. Bill. And you're applauding for a good reason, because Bill was just voted as the next president of Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. He's right here. And I can tell you, he's got small shoes to fill. But he's our hardest working person. And if you know Bill, does that sound like Bill? Yeah. But anyway, remarks from Bill. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. I stand before you here tonight as a new president. No. Actually, I want to recognize some people here today. And the first person I want to recognize on our board is Doug Mildrum, who, Doug, where are you? He usually hides in the back there, who was treasurer for many, many years on our board and recently stepped down. I think he's going to be traveling, or already does a lot of global travel. So I want to recognize Doug and thank him for everything he's done on behalf of the board. And I also want to thank Bill Conley. And Bill is the one who sort of brought me on with my good friend Rob Weddick. And I remember Bill said to me, let's go walk the lake, before I became a board member. And We walked the lake, and even though I live in Wakefield, and I've lived in Wakefield most of my life, I'm very proud to call myself a townie. You know, he pointed out things to me while walking around that lake that I didn't know. So I've learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot, and we're all going to learn a lot tonight through this presentation. A couple of us have had a sneak preview, and it's really, I think, outstanding. So I really believe everybody will enjoy it. So Bill has been a board member for a lot of years and has been president for a long time, and he graciously was the president over the last year, and he really is a beacon and a star of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. So I want to thank him for everything he's done. Thank you, Bill. And for his wife, Peg, putting up with him. So now my wife, Ann, has something else to put up with from me being president. So thank you. Appreciate it. I want to recognize town councilors that we have here this evening. Our two newest councilors, Stacy Constas and John Chrisley, are sitting back there. John Carney is back there. Jonathan Shines was here, but I understand he left for one of his children's events. And I want to ask the town council chair, Maureen Butt, to come up and say a few words on behalf of the town. And one of the things that's really cool about Maureen, in terms of being up here, in addition to her work on the town council, and we know how much fun that must be all the time, is Maureen was a board of director members of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. So anyway, Maureen, could you say a few words?
You took my remarks. That's what I was going to talk about. So I'll be really quick. So I love coming to this annual event. I do want to recognize my colleagues that are here. I also want to recognize people from the town, including Dennis and town administrator Steve Mayo in his 17th year. So just want to say thanks for being here. I've always enjoyed the work of the Friends of the Lake. I joke that I'm not a townie. I wasn't raised in Wakefield, but my mom used to push me in a stroller around the lake because I grew up next door in Linfield. So I am close enough. And when I moved to town, the first group that I joined was Friends of the Lake, and I worked on this newsletter at Karen Fowler's home at her desk, putting this together before we mailed it out. So I adore everything that you do. Your organization is such a great partner with the town. I'm looking forward to all the work that we're going to continue to do together. So thank you all.
And I should say I appreciate Maureen pointing out Dennis Fazio, who's sitting back there beside Steve Mayo. But overall, the collaboration that we have with different boards in town and the responsiveness that they have to us is really, really outstanding. I'm very, very fortunate that we're able to collaborate in that way in things we do for the lake. So anyway, the next person I'd like to introduce our State Representative Donald Wong. Donald is everywhere all the time, and he is also always comes to this event and our annual breakfast in November, and we're very grateful for that. So Donald, would you come up and say a few words, please?
You might say that I'm around everywhere, but if I look taller, it's my brother. And I want to prove that I'm Asian, so I'm going to take a couple of pictures. Thank you very much. I love the lake. I love Steve Mayo. I've been working with Steve Mayo ever since I got elected in 2011, and I've been working with the Lake Quannapowitt. The first year we got elected, my partner was Paul Broder, and the thing we wanted to fix was the poles in the entrance of Quannapowitt Park, which had the wires. So it took us over a year to take down the poles and put the wires underneath. And then Paul became a mayor. So, Steve, I'm not looking for your job. I like where I am. No, you gotta stay. The next project we did for the lake was the historic house, the blue one. Because the town owns it, we got a grant to fix the roof. And it had to be fixed special because it's a historic house. And then just recently, we did the bandstand. We refurbished it. And that's working with everyone here, and especially Steve. You know, he always told me, we need money. And I would say, what for? And he would tell us. But I can't say enough for everyone in this room that is helping to keep the lake the way it is and make it better each year. You know, it's not just a town that uses it. It's people coming from all over. And it's great for the fundraisers when they have to walk around the lake and everything else. And I can't say enough for everything you do. So thank you.
Okay, and the last recognition we want to do this evening is Steve Mayo. Could you please come up here? Karen, would you please come up, Karen Failer? So I know Steve's going to love this. So as a couple folks have spoken, 17 years Steve's been in his role as the town administrator. I've known Steve for many years before this role, you know, in this role, and whether it be Friends of Lake Quanapawet or other things, I've been involved in the community. Steve has been very helpful, supportive, has always been very supportive of the Friends of Lake Quanapawet. So given that this is his last time being here as the town administrator, fully expect you to be here in forthcoming years, even though you won't be town administrator anymore.
Breakfast is next.
Breakfast is next in November. We just wanted to do a brief and quick recognition for him and all that he's done. That's been wonderful for the Friends of Lake Quanapawet. So Karen, would like to say a few words?
Yes, I'm really happy to say a few words about Steve Mayo and his public service. What his public service has meant to the integrity of Lake Quanapawet. He's been there at critical moments for the lake repeatedly, and it's important that the community be reminded of that at this moment of transition. I became active with FOLQ about 30 years ago. Since that time, there have been several critical points where the preservation of our lake environment could have gone in negative directions. And just to remind you of a few things, there could have been a fast food restaurant in the area that is now Spalding Park at the head of the lake. A purchase and sale agreement had already been signed. Also, there could have been an aging, unused Colonel Connolly Park surrounded by chain link fences and overgrown bushes that was just an eyesore and not really used by the public. And as Mr. Wong said, we could potentially still be looking at huge utility poles, 3 foot at the base. You know, I forget how tall, 60 feet tall with 16 wires that suddenly emerged after the community had worked hard to make that area an engaging and beautiful entry into the town we love. While virtually everybody today is happy those negative things did not happen, they really could have happened. And they would have happened except for positive leadership. Of course, FOLQ was a part of that positive leadership, but we could never have been successful alone. We needed visionaries in town government. And Steve Mayo was a central part of that visionary leadership on lake issues. As someone who was integrally involved in these lake projects over the years, I can give personal witness that most of our public officials did not initially support these projects. Despite, you know, how well they are received today. Many of these hesitant officials later came around with the pressure of public advocacy. But I can tell you today, Steve Mayo was there for our lake early without arm twisting. As a selectman, as a town manager, he had the capacity for long-range vision unfettered by political anxiety of the moment. Citizens today and those of the future owe him gratitude for his role in protecting the heritage of our beloved lake. So tonight, Steve, we thank you. And may you find joy focusing your great vision on your grandchildren and juicy tomatoes in your backyard.
And we do have a Friends of Lake Quannapowitt gift for Steve that is Friends of Lake Quannapowitt logoed material. So Steve, enjoy.
Thank you very much, and I want to say that Karen is tenacious on every one of these issues, so it was a lot of arm twisting, really. And bribery with blueberries, so I'm still expecting blueberries. Okay, thank you very much, thank you, great group, thank you.
I'm going to turn it back to our past president for the past 25 minutes or so. But I also want to recognize, Bill talked about the great board. I can't say anything more better than he did. But after Bill gets the presentation going, he's going to introduce Bree Reynolds, who's the vice president. Margaret Copey is our secretary, and Bill is now the treasurer of the Friends Lake Quannapowitt. So I want to recognize that executive team for the Friends. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
So before Bree comes up, I'd like to ask Matt D'Amico to come up for a few words. Matt is Chief Operating Officer of Cabot, and Forbes. Got to know him quite well in the early stages of the preliminary stages of the development, the early stages of the development. I have great respect for him, and he's nicely said he'd come in and make a few remarks. Come on up. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Just want to thank the board for inviting us here tonight and offering us the chance to present on our project at the head of the lake. So I'm with Cabot and Forbes. We're the developer of the Basin, which is the 440-unit project at the head of the lake. Without Bill and Margaret and the rest of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, I don't think this project would ever have happened the way it is today. I'm going to embarrass myself for a second. I was 22 years old when I met Bill, and we proposed some monstrosity on the lake, being the greedy developers we are, and there was a campaign against the project, as there should have been. Thousands of signs out there, and I think recognizing the value of bringing the community and the development community together and actually being able to synthesize what is the best outcome we can have for the town and for the lake while still having something productive happen on the site. That's a very unique thing that we see. And I don't think without the Friends of the Lake we could have ever put something together like this. Now, we're opening units in August. If you want to live here, we have units for release right now. For the future of this project, we have our first phase opening in August, with our last phase opening in middle of 2026, hopefully. And we're partnered with a group, Equity Residential. They're one of the largest landlords in the country, over 80,000 units managed. So they're a great partner. They will be managing. Their business model for this project is to own this in perpetuity. They never plan to leave Wakefield. So I think that's going to be a great partner for the lake. We'll be around for the long haul too, but again, thank you for the time tonight.
Bree Reynolds, our VP, is going to introduce Coupling and Wolf.
All right, hello everyone. I'm very glad to be introducing the group of speakers that we have today, Ian Ramey and Allison DeBonnet from Copley Wolf, the landscape architects who are in charge of the beautiful things that you're about to see. When I was looking up this architecture firm, I didn't know too much about them. I came to find that they have done things at the Seaport, Assembly Row, Old North Church, and now Lake Quannapowitt. I think it's pretty special that we have this group doing this type of work. Some of the things that they like to incorporate in their projects include the natural elements that define New England, which I think is critical in a situation like this. And they like to let the randomness of nature perfect their designs, which I thought was sort of a beautiful way of encompassing what we at Friends of Lake Quannapowitt also like to do when we're at the lakeshore, is look for what the randomness of nature is offering us and allow that to grow and be a beautiful thing. So without further ado, I'm going to let Allison and Ian take it over and show you what you can expect at the lake. Thank you both.
Thank you very much. We're really happy to be here, and thanks to you for braving the terrible weather tonight to come out and see this. My name is Ian Ramey. I'm a principal and landscape architect at Copley Wolf, and with me is Allison DeBonnet. She's an associate and project manager for this project. Together, she and I are going to run through some brief slides and go over the overview of the project, and then we're happy to take questions at the end. So a little introduction. I mentioned who we are. Copley Wolf is just one piece of a larger team that brought this project together, and of course it all starts with the developer, CCNF, and you heard Matt speak earlier. They are partnered with Equity Residential on the development side. They're really the power behind this development and the vision of it. Our architect is Cube 3. Our civil engineer and environmental consultants are two members who aren't here today but played a large role in the collaboration that we had as landscape architects. So Allen and Major and Goddard Consultant were two groups that we worked closely with to develop the landscape approach for the project. We really wanted to coordinate on the stormwater management side of things with the civil and also the ecological side of things with Goddard to make sure that the landscape wasn't just a beautiful sort of ornamental installation, but something that actually had a function and work to help improve the water quality of the lake. Our structural engineer is H&O, and we've been working closely with them to develop the designs for the boardwalks, which, as you'll see coming up, are really sort of instrumental piece of how we are integrating the public realm with the rain gardens and the public realm that we're creating. The contractor building it is Callahan, and our legal counsel for the project, who you may know, is Brian McGrail. He was instrumental in bringing this project through the public approvals, the permitting process, and really sort of the constant presence through the long timeline of approvals that we went through. So here's a quick look at our agenda. We'll talk really briefly about sort of the project history and the big idea, the big picture that got us to where we are. We'll talk a little bit about our landscape interventions at the lake and how we're integrating the landscape into that. We'll speak about some of the environmental improvements, basically how we mirrored the improvements that the civil engineer and the environmental engineers pulled together. And then we'll get into the fun stuff, which is the planting strategies and some of the habitat benefits that our planting design is going to benefit. And then lastly, we'll look at some of the site development and construction progress so you can see the vision coming to life. So if we start here, this is our big picture sort of idea, and I believe about 4 years ago we had our first few presentations with the Friends to talk about the strategy of what we wanted to do here. And it became pretty clear to us that our first and foremost goal was to really restore or heal the landscape. As you might remember, the project before the development was characterized by a single-story sort of defunct concrete building, acres of surface parking lot and lawn, and poorly drained lawn. There wasn't a lot of species biodiversity. There wasn't a lot of improvements happening that would be beneficial to the lake. And so our strategy really was to come up with a new, vibrant, active public realm, but one that also had a landscape that was serving a purpose and really doing its best to make the quality of the lake better. So some of the sketches you see here just show the early visions of how we thought the rain gardens, which are basically positioned between the development and the lakefront, are the primary strategy for managing the stormwater and doing it in a way that's integrated with the landscape. The other part that we really wanted to do is to celebrate the fact that this is a wonderful open space. And so we know that there's a lake path that runs around the lake and it's well used and loved. We wanted to expand upon that and make it another sort of option to have a secondary path that maybe had some boardwalks that could integrate with some of these rain gardens, really to kind of diversify the experience along the lake. And so that's what we've been working to achieve. So just some of the overview of the conservation efforts. In the upper right corner is a little image of what the site was. Again, it was characterized largely by an expanse of parking fields, underutilized buildings, and really not a strong stormwater management strategy. There was no treatment of the water before it got into the lake. Now we look at our proposed landscape plan. So this is sort of zooming in a little bit. You have I-95 on the north, the lake is on the bottom. We have a series of 4 smaller buildings that are closer to the water's edge. Those are the residential buildings of a smaller scale. And then as you go beyond the main street, we have larger massing where we have taller buildings and also the parking garage, which was instrumental in allowing us to sort of consolidate the amount of parking on site into a structure that's stacked as opposed to having it spread across the bulk of the site like it was before. I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Allison to talk about some of the specific designs of the boardwalk.
Thanks. Thank you. So I think, yeah, overall site, we really focused on planting for this effort and kind of the renaturalization area around the edge of the ring road. So Quannapoat Parkway, we have wrapping the site. And as you get into the kind of lakefront area, that's where we have a 12-foot community path that's, as Ian mentioned, kind of bringing you up closer into the site. The boardwalks that you see kind of in that wood tone color are spanning over the depressions of the rain gardens. So it's a really kind of massive bioretention area in the back that we have capturing the stormwater that is on site and treating it essentially before it reaches the lake, which currently there's some pollution and other efforts that we're mitigating. Site-wide, I think for trees, we counted and have 234 trees that we're planting on site. So huge diversity there, bringing a lot onto the site and really just trying to make it a more environmentally friendly area. And zooming in a little bit further, so just on that lakefront area, there's going to be a new restaurant in the that's kind of shown on the left side of the page here. That's going to have a patio just out looking into the lake. Again, that community path kind of bringing you up to the public plaza that's situated between the 2 buildings. That's going to have really nice views out to the lake and some terracing, seat walls, et cetera. It's going to have, charging stations, Wi-Fi, be just very, very much friendly to the public, in addition to an artistic sculpture. And then obviously preserving that existing lakefront path as well. So diving into some of the environmental improvements, this is where we really worked closely with Goddard and the civil engineer on just the metrics here. Basically, through the improved stormwater management, we're able to reduce the nutrient runoff, increase infiltration and porosity of the site, especially by reducing the kind of parking, asphalt, et cetera, everything that was previously impervious for the site. And really being able to enhance the wetland areas that surround our property, again, with that kind of renaturalization buffer where we're bringing in new species, where we're kind of making a plan for the future, where the natural forest tendencies can kind of take over and take back, stitch that edge together. And then also this was, I think, a big portion of the civil environmental scope was the installation and infrastructure for the Main Street corridor reconstruction, and that mitigated 18 existing untreated stormwater outfalls. And basically, from that, we're able to, on-site, treat 22,000 cubic feet of stormwater, and that's being achieved through about a little over 30,000 square feet of that bioretention and rain garden area. And then just that's a diagram up top, and then also a previously taken photo of Lake Quannapoet, just some of those, the cyanoblumes and algae that we're looking to mitigate. So again, a lot of focus on planting. There are invasives that we observed initially when we went on site back in 2020. Oriental bittersweet, garlic mustard, a bunch of the yucky stuff. So there's pretty intense invasive species management plan that's been put together to really remove those and keep them out of the site. They aren't really great for this species, the existing species. So just adding the native plants back and et cetera, we're gonna have a more diverse lakeshore. So some of the local residents of Lake Quannapoet that we're hoping to keep and just really protect in a lot of ways. The upper left-hand image of the birds is actually from when I was on site yesterday. I'm a bird nerd myself, and there's an app that you can use to identify the different species as they're chirping, and it was the birds were everywhere. It was amazing. And so this was, I think, 5 minutes of just running the app. We've got an oriole visiting, a bunch of, seasonal visitors. That was really exciting to see just now. And obviously once we complete the project, having this, really enhanced and sustained. So the trees, we, as mentioned, planting over 200 tree species. What we selected is really focused on just the high value species. So what are going to be native and providing, food sources, protection, cover, nesting, et cetera, for all of those, different wildlife species that we had just shown. So oaks are really incredible. They kind of hit all the marks there. And things such as like black tupelo are very beautiful, in addition to just creating different food sources for, turkeys, ducks, et cetera. Feel free to add anything if you want. So some of the rain garden species that we're proposing, again, very native focused and looking for just different species that are going to create berries and seeds, et cetera, where we can, again, keep the insects, keep everything on the lake shore. That's what's really going to regenerate the landscape throughout. The boardwalks, those are some examples of kind of what we will be proposing. So pretty low profile boardwalks, just going over, I think it's a couple feet of grade change where the rain gardens depress, and that's following along that community path in the back. So this is where some progress of where we're at, kind of the existing conditions. A photo up in the top left is taken back in 2021. So this is kind of that lawn area that wasn't really draining well. Again, just a big kind of massive building versus having some diversity, which You can see in the bottom left, that's a perspective rendering where it's just showing kind of a conceptual idea of what we aim to achieve once everything is established. And then on the right is a construction photo that I took when I was out yesterday. So you're seeing that excavation starting to happen. The little stick marks are showing the different grade changes, you know, each foot contour going down. So it's all getting carved out, it's getting shaped, and we're gonna be planting that pretty soon. And then just overall progress, again, this is on the left, a conceptual aerial rendering of the site, and just, again, showing the buildings, the landscape, everything that we're proposing, and then a construction photo that was taken last month, just showing kind of where it's at with building. And as Matt mentioned, we'll be opening the first phase in August. All right. Thank you guys for inviting us.
Happy to take any questions or.
We don't have a microphone to go around the room, so if you want to raise your hand and shout it out, that would be helpful. Yes, right up here.
What will the material be for the boardwalk, and when do you anticipate the boardwalk being completed? Estimate.
So the material is going to be a composite wood. It's like a Trex product, if you've heard of that. So something that's pretty sustainable, going to last quite a long time. They're getting installed in phases. So the first, I think it's the first two will get installed kind of planned left. That will be for the August 1st move-in date. And then it's kind of, I think yeah, exactly here. So, so these two will get installed first, and then it'll be kind of moving down here. These two will be the second.
Thank you.
Yes, over here.
At the moment, there's quite a few trees existing along the shoreline between the lake and the building. What's going to happen to those?
So those are all going to remain as they are. There's a couple large pine trees on site, and then obviously everything that's kind of right against the lake, that's staying. Obviously, there's invasives removal situation like that, where some of the vines, et cetera, will be taken down. But our intent with the site is really just keeping as much existing as we can. Even those not so pretty looking trees are really great habitat. Some of the dead wood, honestly, for the birds is great. So we've kind of strived to keep anything out of the building way to really preserve that.
And I would just add that the sort of wiggling path on the left side was a result of us trying to avoid the existing trees. So we tried to weave around and stay out of their root zone as much as possible.
Yes, John.
I just want to say, I think you have an amazing opportunity here with this strip of land between there. I think just in terms of respecting what wants to be there, what's there, and what you can improve is awesome. Kind of reminds me, if you have been to the Danvers Port Yacht Club, with the buildings behind, I think if you saw that place, I think you recognize that there's some real potential for little pocket gardens that might be quite intense.
Great.
Thanks.
More questions? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, there's someone else that was out before you said, use the term random mass of the wilderness. What does that mean? Nobody used that term before you that was out there.
Oh, I think it was the randomness of nature.
Oh, that.
It's one of the things on your homepage talks about how you let the randomness of nature inform the perfection of the design.
Can you repeat the questions?
Yeah, so the question is, what does the randomness of nature mean, and how is that part of our company? So basically what we're referring to there is oftentimes we're doing projects and developments that have very straight or architectonic lines, whether it be walkways or walls and things like that. And our sort of counter to that is planting design that is naturalistic and in drifts and massing and not following that same kind of geometric rule. So it's kind of a juxtaposition, I guess, of the natural stuff which you perceive as the plants and then the stuff that's a little bit more quote unquote man-made, which is the linear or orthogonal.
Can I continue? Sure. The thing about this, it sounds very lovely and everything, but all I can think of is Woburn. The mall in Woburn, and
Okay.
all the restaurants, and all the shops, and all the apartments, you can't find a place to park. It's an absolute zoo getting down there. And I know, I think that you're going to have restaurants down there and shops, correct?
There will be one restaurant, I believe, at the sort of west left side.
One restaurant in the whole complex?
I believe so, but Matt, correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
I'm just concerned about the traffic situation. Like, I'm just thinking of the Woburn Mall. It used to be it's a zoo. It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is there was an extensive traffic study that was part of the approvals process, and the traffic engineers vetted all this. They went through the process. That's not really our scope to deal with, but
So where would the parking be for people that are coming to shop at the restaurants versus the parking area for people that wanted to live there?
all right. So the hotel or the garage is where the parking would be. The parking field that's to the left of the project, which is closest to where the restaurant would be for the restaurant patient.
But if you lived
Patrons.
in one of those 4 buildings, that's where would you go to get your car?
Yeah.
Matt probably has a better answer to that than we do.
Yeah, happy to answer. So, couple things. So for the overall site plan here, we have, so there's 440 units, there's over 700 parking spaces in the project, which is actually about 300 parking spaces more than the market demand. Predominantly, those are parked inside there's a structured parking garage right here. But also we've added close to 200 convenience spaces at grade that are close to the individual units themselves. And
Something that they would purchase to park their car close by?
Exactly.
Or else walk into the parking garage?
That's right. And another thing I think we should just add is there was a concern initially, you probably remember, before the site was developed, people kind of used the existing parking lot to be able to walk the lake. So we have 49 parking spaces that we've added to the site plan that are strictly just for visitors. So this parking lot over here, the intent of that is that if you're a lake walker, or if you're visiting the restaurant or whatever, we still need to find a tenant for the restaurant if you know anyone, that is an option as well.
All right, so those 4 buildings in the front are for occupancy. What's going to be in the buildings in the back is in the way?
Yeah. So, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My voice loud enough?
Yeah.
Great. So this is 64 units up front. This is the first phase of the project that opens in August. This is actually one building. We broke it up architecturally. There's a bridge, whole thing. This is another 89 units. This is the last part of the project that opens. And the balance, close to 300 units, is in this self-contained building in the rear here. Part of the overall design vision of the project was to get as much density as close to the highway. Honestly, as a sound barrier, that was something that we talked about extensively, as a sound barrier for the lake, and even to some degree, as a visual barrier to the Jordans, which has light pollution that comes right on the lake. So this was something that we really tried to perfect throughout the process. It's still a 4-story building, so it's not going to block it out completely, but that was part of the logic. Because most of the density is in this back building here, we have most of the parking there as well.
So where are your shops and restaurants?
So we have 3,600 square feet of, it's going to be one restaurant. It's right here at the front, over by the 100 Quantapowhat office building. It's permitted for 100 seats. Honestly, we envision this as something that's going to be an amenity to people walking the lake, to people who live in the complex, to people who work in the office building next door. We're excited for it to open, but yeah, 3,600 square feet there.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that that's the only retail on the whole site. This is not.
Yeah, this is the only retail on the whole site. That is
Oh,
true.
so there are no shops?
No shops.
I thought there were going to be. Oh, so basically it's all apartments?
It's all apartments, yep.
Oh,
We're also, as part of this, as part of the permitting process, we agreed to incorporate and start a shuttle system for the town of Wakefield, with the idea is that that shuttle system will provide service between the apartment complex and the train station downtown, as well as just general downtown shopping as a hope to try to revitalize some of that business. And the one thing I'll mention, and I'll shut up, my boss always accuses me of burying the lead, and I think I'm doing this tonight. The lakefront plaza that we have down at the bottom, really the intention there, and I really hope it turns out this way, is this is a new public park in our mind for the town of Wakefield. Previously, the previous development here was very uninviting to be able to actually enjoy the space at the top of the lake. And although we talk about the lake paths, whatever, I think actually I view this as like a front yard, and this summer, as well as next summer when we're fully open, everything is all done and beautiful, highly encourage you and anyone you know to take advantage of this front yard and enjoy it. Enjoy the open space that's going to be added here. So.
When will the shuttle service start? Will it be when you start building the first building?
The idea is next summer it'll start.
Question.
It's a great idea.
Here.
Yes. Obviously, before this, it was a massive impervious area, which is really, really bad for the lake. Can you talk about the balance and maybe possible reduction or similarities in the impervious versus the vegetated areas and open space areas?
Do you have those percentages? It's pretty.
Can you repeat your question?
I'll let you.
Yeah, so the question was on the impervious space that was previously on site and how that's balanced with the landscape now. The metrics we have here is that we've converted to protect 53% of the open space, and we ended up removing 485 surface parking spaces that were previously on there and replaced those with landscape and public realm area.
And I will add, there was a net decrease in impervious surface. I don't know what the exact number is, but yeah, it's a downtick of what was there pre-development.
And right here, we have a question from Jen.
Yes, I have two actually. So thank you for presenting all of this. You had mentioned that there was a traffic study or traffic analysis of all of that. So we're not aware of what that was. Do you have any other information of what they recommended other than maybe the transportation of a shuttle? Because living here in the town, just coming up Prospect Street to here, the crazy line of traffic, and these people haven't even moved in yet. So, like, how is that going to address the traffic that's already here? And I understand that the front is now going to be a public place, which is great, which is going to bring more people into the town. And so, do you guys live here in Wakefield?
I do not know.
Okay, so we can tell you that the traffic is already something that it's like, it's a great thing. It looks great, and you've done a lot of work, and I'm sure there's been a lot of effort and approvals and all that, but practically speaking, like, what else are they recommending? Because
It's a fair question. So as part of the permitting process, we had actually two buckets of funds that we allocated to the town, basically to address two things. To address North Ave, there's a specific intersection, I believe it's Linda Street on North Ave, that there's a signalization project that the town wants to do. The town was looking to do that regardless, but they were able to access this project as a bucket of capital to be able to actually achieve that. So that was something that we contributed. Leaving towards Lowell Street, that, as you know, that intersection is a disaster, very unsafe. So we contributed money for some pedestrian improvements for that area, as well as a left turn prohibition. I'll also say, because I can't help myself, when we actually embarked on this project, we thought about releasing this as office. That was a major consideration. You might remember my predecessor, Waterstone Properties, they actually permitted this thing for a lab. We thought about doing that. If you were to just open the office building that was on site again, the traffic that comes from the multifamily is dwarfed by the amount of traffic that you had coming from that office. The traffic flows of that type of use it's dramatically different. So I promise you it will not be the big bad wolf that I think some people think it might be. And you can find me if that turns out to not be the case.
Okay. I don't know where we'd find you, but thank you for that. My next question is, you had said that a lot of the planting and scientific decisions you've made in this is helping to make the lake or avoid it from getting any worse. Do you have any benchmarks or like reports or analysis that once it's done you can read it and say yes it worked, and if it doesn't, then what do we do? Is there like a backup plan or a secondary project that's going to actually get us to where initially you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I mean,
they have monitoring, right?
yeah, so a big piece of this is like the civil engineering. The civil engineering process for this was a bear. So we have, as part of our permit documents, that's something that we're beholden to. We have an annual operations and maintenance plan that the town supervises as part of that, where we have to do testing on our stormwater systems on the site to be able to prove out that they're working in a way that we told the town that they were going to work. So these systems are taking out essentially nutrients from stormwater, the nutrients that end up polluting the lake. So we need to be proving that out year by year as part of our operations management plan. We also have a full-time environmental monitor, which is a third-party consultant who goes out there. They actually, right now, they go out there at every single storm event, and once a week otherwise if there's no storm event, and they're documenting these things. So specifically because of the Conservation Commission process we had in the town of Wakefield, that is what kind of codifies that. Yeah, we will have that information and data for sure.
Made available. It would be made available to
Yeah,
the residents?
as part of the town conservation, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
My question is so all the plantings are happening this summer, maybe more next summer as the construction project wraps up. What is the expected date for when it's fully grown in? Where are we expecting things to fully mature and really come to the full vision of what we're anticipating?
Yeah, so it's a good question. That's the thing with landscape, is that it takes a long time for trees to mature, years and years and years. So when you talk about the tree species that we're planting, we're talking about 50 years before they become as tall as some of the trees that you see out there today. For the lower level stuff, the perennials and shrubs and ground covers and seeded areas, those are going to go in almost at their mature or close to mature size, so that within about 5 years, they will be fully sort of at their maximum form. But out of necessity, when we're buying plants from a nursery, they are babies, they're little plants, so they do need a little bit of a time to grow and mature.
So, I'm just want to make sure that, so this is basically a retention pond when you're designing underneath the walkways, is that right?
Correct, yeah, they're rain gardens, so they will capture the water, the storm water, they'll hold it for a while. A lot of the water will be uptaken and the pollutants will be uptaken by the roots of the plants in those basins. And then it'll slowly be released through an outlet control structure into the lake.
So the majority of the water that's going into that is coming from the building structures themselves, on the roofs? Is that what it's coming from?
It's a combination, so some of the stuff does come from the roofs on site. I believe other parts of the surrounding area are actually draining into this area, and that was part of the problem, that there was off-site water coming onto the site, going across the asphalt, going across the lawn, and directly untreated into the lake before we got involved.
Now, is that for all structures, including the parking garage, that's draining into that area? Or are they draining somewhere else?
I'm not sure exactly how much of all that's a little more on the civil engineering side of things, but my understanding is we are capturing all of the water on site and treating it.
So I know in parking garages, usually it goes into the stormwater drains, which imagine cars and oils, all that stuff going into this drain, that's going into the pond, it's not really helpful for that.
Yeah, I can't speak to the logistics of how some of that parking structure is being drained via the drains, but
It's say there's a maintenance responsibility to this?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is part of our plumbing system in the garage. That is partially treated. You are right that it does eventually go into the stormwater system. A lot of the pollutants that were actually that were going into the lake previously, I think it's an interesting fact, actually were coming from the highway. So there was a ton of untreated stormwater coming from the highway. Now a lot of that's being treated as part of this design. So.
My understanding is that would drain down into what would be that's on the right-hand side, it's all the wooded area, not the lake itself, but.
Well, on the left-hand side, it actually goes right into the lake. So we have some stormwater systems that are on the left-hand side of that parkway that are going to be treating some of that water.
Sir, what was supposed previously dissipated in many directions is now seem to be focused towards that, which we just voted to inherit that piece of property, so we would be responsible for that in the future. I just want to make sure that that's not going to cause adverse down the road. And I know that all the designs are done, but there's a lot of water now coming towards the lake that wasn't before, including leaching out of that park garage, which does contaminate some products.
Yeah, I happy to follow up with for the actual science of it, like our full hydrology study, full watershed studies, all of that was done for this. It's a massive improvement versus the existing condition, and frankly, versus what we could have otherwise proposed here. But happy to share all that information.
And one question came from the back, and this will probably be our last question, just looking at time, but sort of related, for the ongoing management of the landscape area, can you talk a little bit about how that will work, who is responsible? Is it the town, is it the owners, where does the funding come from? Just kind of what the plan is to go forward once it's all complete.
Yeah, so as part of the project, so actually the green area that's between this strip here, that's actually currently owned by the town, will remain to be owned by the town. As part of the project, we're actually picking up the maintenance for that area. As part of our permits, to be in compliance with our permits, we are required to maintain not only the town land, but the entire site to a certain condition. Through the Board of Appeals, we have an operations and maintenance plan, a separate one from the one I just referenced, that actually specifies like the cadence that we go out there and the landscape and the way that we're going to landscape it, the fact that we're not going to use polluting chemicals to do it. So we, in perpetuity, and any successor of the property legally will be required to pick up those responsibilities.
Can you just ask why they call it basin?
Oh, and last question, why is it called the basin? Great question, thank you.
The owner of my company hates the name. I'll put that out there. The idea that our national partner had was that, one, there are literal basins, the rain gardens that are on the site, and they view the basin as like a place where things come together. So it was kind of like this tongue-in-cheek name for a community, essentially. She doesn't like it. Well, thank you all.
All right, well, first I want to thank the landscape architecture firm here, Allison and Ian, for coming out. Thank you very much. It's really great to see what's going to be happening there and to get the thought process behind it and the thoughtfulness that was put into it. So thank you very much for coming. We have the room for a little bit longer, so if you want to grab one last drink, one last cup of coffee, feel free. Thank you all very much for coming out and supporting Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, and have a good summer at the lake. Thank you.